So the problem I came across with in trying to do the Mac version is that if you have no plugins whatsoever, you can compile for the iPad or the iPhone off your PC. And that's fine for development. You can plug in your iPad, you can launch to it, like I mentioned how you can launch to your Google device. First problem is that the minute you add a plugin, it breaks your Blueprint only project. If you're not even in a Blueprint only project to begin with, you're already kind of shooting yourself in the foot in that regard. The minute you have compiled code, the minute you have anything that is not just out of the box Unreal, you cannot compile to the iOS without a Macintosh. The second problem is even if you do all that and you compile to the iOS from your PC, you can't upload it without one of two pieces of software, either Xcode or Application Loader. Both of them are Mac-only programs. So I was looking into this because I was trying to figure out how to solve the problem for myself. One option is to go out and buy a Macintosh, which I didn't have the money to do. Second option is to create a virtual machine on your desktop, and that kind of scared the crap out of me because I didn't want to break my main machine and not be able to do any work. The option I found that worked best for me is this service here called Macincloud. What this will allow me to do is remote into a Macintosh and use it remotely. Now, the good people at Macincloud have been very supportive in trying to get this project up and running. The first Macincloud I got was not capable of running Unreal. I had to kind of come back to them and say, hey, look, this isn't sufficient. It doesn't have a proper graphics card. Unreal won't launch. And it took a little back and forth, but they were more than accommodating. And they got me hooked up with this one, and this one works rather nicely. And so I was able to set everything up. And I pay a little extra for complete admin rights so I can install anything that I want. I didn't want to have that. You can go a little bit cheaper and ask them to install it. But for me, I wanted to have that kind of control of being able to put in whatever I wanted to get wherever I needed without having to go a lot of back and forth. So I did pay a little bit extra. I think I wound up paying $65 a month, which, doing the math, if a Mac costs about $2,000, then I can basically rent this for almost 2 years before about a year and 9 months, I think, or a year and 6 months before I actually come across that price point. And my project is shipped. So other than compiling one or two more versions and doing this tutorial, I'll probably cancel my subscription for now because I just don't need it anymore. And then when I want to do my next iOS game, I will come back to them and renew my subscription, assuming I still can't afford a Mac at that time of my own. So I'm going to go ahead and log in the Macincloud. Now, of course, if you're developing on Macintosh, you can build to Android on the Mac, I believe. So if you're on Macintosh, you've kind of already solved both problems. So it's kind of a PC workflow issue that I'm working around. Okay, so now I'm on the Mac, and it's a little distorted, but that's okay. Because it's got a square remote in window, and I'm stretching it to fit the HD resolution here. So it's a little screwy. So as a prerequisite, you need to have at least 8 gigs of RAM and a DirectX compatible graphics card. You also need to have Xcode installed. Now, Xcode is free, so it's not a big deal if you don't have it. You just got to go through the process of downloading it and installing it. You also need either Xcode or a program called Keytool, which I think is actually part of the OS, if I'm not mistaken. There we go. As you can tell, I am not a Mac expert. So here's Application Loader. This is one of the two ways to upload our application. We'll be using Application Loader. And if we come down here, there should be a bunch of Xcode. I think it's under Utilities. And Keychain Access. That's the one. There we go. And this is all the certificates that I set up for compiling my game. So we're going to go through this process. Now, in the Unreal documentation, they do a very good job of describing the process for development. Unfortunately, they kind of left it at that, and I found it very confusing until I found a really awesome YouTube video where a guy was developing his own game, and he went through it step by step and illustrated the basically the part that I was missing to get this to work. Okay, so let's start by logging in to your Apple developer. And I'm going to pause this as I log in. Okay, so we are now logged into the Apple developer. Now this is different than iTunes Connect. iTunes Connect is the part where we upload it to the store, set up our in-app purchases. This is similar to when we did the KeyTool stuff for Google. So I know it's a little confusing because both of them are doing it slightly differently. But here's where we want to create our app ID. So let's just go ahead and click plus here. This actually will be just tutorial. Let's make it a little nicer. So we'll go com dot Spectral Ink Productions tutorial 3D motive. Okay, come down here to what services we want. Obviously, Game Center is already on. I'm not sure why in-app purchases are already on. That's strange, but that's okay. And we'll go ahead and hit continue. All right. Let's just go ahead and register that for now. So now this is similar to registering our APK when we were in the Google side. So let's go to Unreal for a minute. So let's go ahead and remake our project as opposed to porting the one that we made over. It's not like we have a bunch of really cool assets or anything we need to save, so we'll just call it the same thing. Can't spell. There we go. Now, if you have the compiled version of Unreal, not the launcher like we just did, but the compiled version, there is supposed to be a way that you can link your PC to a Mac for these kind of build operations. But when I tried it, they came back and said you have to have the GitHub version. You can't use it from the launcher version, which I thought was very disappointing. So that's kind of an advanced user option that if somebody ever sets up and does a tutorial for that, I would really like to watch it, to be honest. I did not have any luck with that, but that's just me. Okay, so let's talk about setting this up for compiling. So go to our project settings, and much like when we set up for Android, we have to set up for iOS. So obviously we want to enable the Game Center. Now these provisions here are for my other game, the one that I built and is up on the iTunes Store. So we won't be using any of these. We're going to have to create a new one. So again, we'll go over here to display name. We'll just call it tutorial for 3D motive. Call this one tutorial 3D motive. And then this one is just like our bundle ID, Spectral Ink Productions. Tutorial 3D Motive. And then the rest of these, you know, whether or not we're in landscape or locking the frame rate, all this kind of stuff, this is all pretty much optional stuff down here. These are all the icons that need to be in, and Unreal puts placeholders in for them. So we should be pretty much good once we get these provisions set up.